There is a lot to unpack from the West Ham-Liverpool game, and I want to get straight into it because I feel like there is a lot to break down with you guys. I saw a lot of the comments after the last LASK game, and I feel like Liverpool fans currently want to work out what it is that we're on to this season. Are we on to a title charge? Are we on to a top four finish? Are we on to a hiding? What is it? Well, if you'd asked Mikel Antonio pre-match, there's a couple of things he probably would have said. Hold on a second. I just need to leave presentation mode because I'm smarter than you. I know more about football and I think we're on something this weekend. You lost. For how many times now is that, David Moyes? You let your manager down, mate. You let your manager down. 3-1 to Liverpool in the end. And this comment, I saw how Wolves played against Liverpool, and we've got them this weekend. We're finishing above them this season. That was on some podcast with Callum Wilson. I would just say, stick to podcasting, mate. Come back to the side of lazy people. Come back to the side of people who have opinions but don't back them up. Oh, that's some good coffee. In this instance, tea. Anyway, these are his stats for the game. I think you guys are going to be a little more interested in this. I'm just saying, I think you will be. Mikel Antonio game by numbers. 0 shots on target, 0 crosses completed, 0 aerial duels won, 1 big chance missed, 10 possessions lost. That wasn't mine. I think it was Samuel LFC's tweet. But I did break down some of those other aspects as well. By the way, he did get the assist before the assist for the goal. So it was actually a pretty good assist before an assist as well. Like, he got it, laid it off. You could see that he was confident. And that's actually kind of what I wanted to get into in this game, because there are plenty of people who, at the moment, do seem fairly confident coming into games against Liverpool, especially strikers. They feel like that back line is gettable, attable. But this Liverpool side are filled with confidence. And so a game where they just dominate so much, Liverpool up here, West Ham down here, a game where they just dominate so much, you would have expected that anyway, right? This is a home game against West Ham, a side that cede a lot of possession, a side that at one point in the game had like 24% of possession. You can just see David Moyes going, we've got them exactly where we want them. We're going to lose this one 3-1, but it's exactly where we want them. Sorry, it just annoyed, the Mikel Antonio thing annoyed me. I didn't like it, but also I like it. I feel like strikers, he just come from a tape session with the West Ham guys and they'd gone, we can beat these guys. Let's get out there, lads, and beat them. And he'd gone, you know what, I'm going to go on the podcast and I think I'm going to say this. And they went, maybe don't do that because we don't want to give away the fact that we're confident, mate. And he went, no, it's good, don't worry. We'll win. You just told me we'll win. We'll be fine. No, don't worry about it. No. Yeah, we're going to win. And they went, why'd you have to do that one, Mikel? Because now they've just done the pre-match team talk. But even then, you could see that Liverpool were a little nervous early on. And in fact, quite a few of the comments after the LASK game on this channel were about Liverpool's, not lack of confidence, but just the opposition being able to get into Liverpool very early on, try and peg them back, trying to get an early goal. But then Liverpool's confidence just completely reversing. And it seems to be that halftime team talk, which does kind of give Liverpool something else. I'm not saying that's all that gives Liverpool something else, because there was the penalty, obviously, to Mo Salah after what was very clearly a penalty. Liverpool's dominance just worked up and up and up throughout the first half, and then you could see West Ham work their way back into the game. You could see that West Ham was still thinking there is something in this for us. But what I wanted to say about the West Ham game, the LSK game, and the Mikel Antonio comments all combined into one little ball, right? Just while we're here, let's just see how dominant Liverpool were. 3 expected goals. It wasn't even like Liverpool outscored their expected goals. West Ham also performed to about their expected goals. Ball possession, 64%, 36%. This was a game that Liverpool dominated, but that's exactly where West Ham want Liverpool to be. That's exactly where LASK want Liverpool to be. They want Liverpool to come in and almost be too cocky, almost be too confident, almost be the side that are like what they were in previous years. It was like, we should be winning this game. Yeah, but you have to work in order to get to that point. So I kind of want to lay out some of this because, again, another good comment post-match was Thursday-Sunday flow is brutal. And I agree with that. That is that Europa League, early season malaise that teams get into. And it can make things difficult sometimes. So I get that. This is still early on in the season. Then the other one was this Liverpool team is way off the level of that Champions League and EPL yet to feel an aura. It feels like aura is something that obviously feels quite sort of on and off. Very often you get like, I don't want to say Conor McGregor, like Pep Guardiola and Man City types, your Muhammad Ali types, your big fighters that come into a session and they're just like, hey, we're here, we're just going to impose ourselves. But even those guys have moments where they get a little bit rocked. And Liverpool have kind of had that more recently. And actually what I find interesting about it is it feels less and less dependent on one player within the squad to now rouse the rest of them. It felt very dependent on someone like a Henderson, which was why he was so much in the team. It felt very dependent on a couple of players where it was like, come on, can we get a performance out of these guys here? The real answer in this instance is that the squad depth, the leadership, the importance of Jurgen Klopp's system was lost the more and more that Liverpool tried to move away from that initial version of it that was so successful. And he had to go away from it in order to come back to version 2.0, should we say. And that's where I think we forget that this squad has some depth. We forget that this squad has quality throughout. Alisson is backed up by a great goalkeeper. There are players in that back line who are considered fourth choice who are currently backing up Konate, Virgil van Dijk, in Joe Gomez and Joel Matip. There are other players like Quansah alongside that who are then youthful backup to that. Liverpool sold more centre-backs in the summer to clear out more space for these guys. So I'm interested to know what you guys think about kind of the makeup of the squad right now. It felt so transitional last season. I could see where it was transitioning to, or I felt like I could. But now in this game, you could see this West Ham side have been set up to take advantage of a Liverpool team like this. Ward-Prowse in there, Paquetá, Alvarez, like Antonio, Jarrod Bowen. All of those guys have very good games. All those guys have clearly been briefed to play Liverpool in a certain way and had a bit of a battle in that midfield area with your Szoboszlai, McAllister and Curtis Jones types. I want to break that down in a second, right? But before that, let's just talk about Joe Gomez. Liverpool still seem to start with nerves for some reason. I was kind of just covering this a second ago. We need to get the mentality right from the start. I do agree with that, right? Thank you, Jim Jam. I do agree with that. But I think that a lot of that is also down to the fact that the opposition are putting pressure early on. The fact that there are a couple of players playing out of position. The fact that we have got a couple of guys who are still coming back into confidence. Joe Gomez, for instance, I think was fantastic in this Liverpool game. I don't want to call him man of the match, but I think his role was so key, so integral to what Liverpool are trying to achieve in terms of they need players who are just going to be tactically intelligent, very solid in what they do, and no, this is not essentially my limit, but this is my position within the side. I'm here to enable others. And within that enabling, I can actually be really strong and Premier League quality, basically. And when I say Premier League quality, I mean like top of the Premier League quality. Liverpool in recent weeks have lost Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Hendo and Fabinho have gone from this midfield. So the structure is changing quite a lot. And so players like Joe Gomez deserve a whole load of credit because it's easy to go, you're a backup, come in for a couple of games, overlook that. I'm not saying, therefore, that when Trent comes back, he shouldn't be a starting right-back. But Joe Gomez has shown that there is still that level of game reading, that's still that level of quality, and that base level of intelligence that Liverpool need to try to transition from the previous era, which was a very good era, into the modern era of football where positions are read very differently, where it's important that you have players like Joe in the side who can take really specific tactical instructions and then do them in very specific parts of the game. Eras of the game is like too long an era. Joe played right back, covered at centre back, went into midfield at different points to try and give Liverpool numerical overload. He didn't go in there and try and be another player. He didn't go in there and try and be, Konate in the centre-back, Trent Alexander-Arnold at the right-back, covering midfielder at the midfield position. He went in and was Joe Gomez. And I think that's something really important, and he deserves credit for that. But I find it interesting, another comment from, I think it's Zalik, basically said, Jurgen Klopp 1.0 is attacking by defending from the front. Jurgen Klopp 2.0 defends by attacking from the back. This Liverpool side is so much more balanced now that it isn't dependent on... You remember last season, you beat the press, you beat the team. The press came from the front, obviously, last season. There are a lot of players who are newer or not able to press in the formation that Klopp wanted. Now, with Salah in his new position, which is Salah floating everywhere is great, the team can interchange again. Nunez, much more informed, and the intensity of someone like Luis Diaz, the willingness to go in there and commit a foul, the willingness to go in there and be gritty, the willingness to go in there and win the ball back, this Liverpool side is different. It's not Mo Salah, Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane. But this is world-class quality across the front line for Liverpool. And not only that, and I haven't included obviously Cody Gakpo in there as well, Diogo Jota, when he came on, was world class. His positioning, his willingness to be involved, the fact that he isn't just that player that goes, well, I didn't start, so what am I meant to do? Klopp has got an integrated squad that is now invested in just winning games. And whatever phase they come on of the game, this side are always vitalised. They always look youthful, they always look energized, they always look engaged with the game. There is no point, like last season when we saw it with Mo Salah, where he looked isolated. Like last season where we didn't quite know where Darwin Núñez was going. Like last season where we didn't quite know what we were going to do without Luis Diaz out on that wing, which, by the way, Jota actually filled in on quite well, but you could see that the Luis Diaz role this season, the confidence, the footwork, the carrying of the ball, all these things have been so integral to how Liverpool are playing this season. But it's the intensity of that last season got Diaz injured. And I want to kind of bring up this very quick. I know some people switch off when you talk about basketball. Luis Diaz is still a very young, promising player. He's still not hit his peak. He's still essentially learning what it is that Liverpool want him to do, or moving into going away from just taking Klopp instruction and moving into being the individual that can influence things on a world-class level. Obviously, they're not in the Champions League this season, so testing that world-class level is going to be a lot more infrequent, but you get my point. But he attacks the game with so much physicality, with so much vigour, with so much enthusiasm. I love that. It's what got him injured last year, because he was so intense, because he's so engaged, all these kind of things. And it reminds me of a young Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade played for the Miami Heat, a big franchise, someone who was young, someone who was trying to make an impression and played alongside superstars, but was also the Flash, someone who was an entity within himself. He had a nickname within the NBA, so you know he was good. My point is, say the same about Derrick Rose. You could say the same about a number of young, promising, but intense players who sweated a lot, but also had intense amounts of quality and wanted to show that. And part of their quality was they could play really intensely and keep up their world-class quality. That is what Salah did early on in his career. Now he's transitioning. I want to talk about that a bit more in a second, but now he's transitioning away from that. Núñez, intense quality, able to perform at a high level. Diaz, intense quality, able to perform at a high level. You see what I'm saying about this here? Like, it isn't just like, I'm not just shoehorning in the NBA for no reason. Dwayne Wade's career was cut short because of the amount of injuries. Dwayne Wade's career, I'm not even saying he had to retire, but it was just not as intense for as long, and he had quite I think a lot of people say it a fall from grace, but I think he could have gone on longer if he hadn't have been so physical early on, is what I would say. Doesn't mean he wasn't great for a very long time. I think Liverpool have got longevity in all these players, especially with players like Luis Diaz, who are intelligent, who have great footwork, who read the game really well. But you can see what I'm saying here. Like, early on, if you've got players who are playing intensely and you need to maintain that intensity throughout the season, that's why a player like Diogo Jota is so key. That's why rotating is so key. And that's why it's so amazing to see this season that Liverpool are able to rotate that front line. You could start with Cody Gakpo. You could start with Luis Diaz, Jota. You could even start with, who else could you put out there? I mean, you could put Ben Doak if you wanted. You could even start with Szoboszlai out on that right wing. And the transitional role now of Salah, I'm not saying it, right? He is world class. Earlier on in the year, I made the case for him leaving the team because 150, 200 million is a lot of money, right? And you could help you for generations within this Liverpool team, especially the way we manage our budgets. But the point from me was, if you move Mo Salah on, you could explore that position in a very different fashion. Because let's face it, like last season, Mo Salah had a good season, but wasn't his best season. We are now seeing world-class Mo Salah in an almost Luis Figo element of his career, where it's like Luis Figo is so attacking, so in control, so brilliant, such a great goal scorer, such an enabler of other people within the side, but such a fulcrum to score goals in that Real Madrid team, in a Barcelona, in so many different sides, right? Inter Milan, I want to say, just from memory. Probably not Inter Milan in the same way, right? But the point, you still get the point. Mo Salah is coming inside now and becoming more of a playmaker, doing more to enable the people alongside him. He's got somebody he can gravitate towards in Darwin Núñez. He's got other players that he can interchange with. Not necessarily Joe Gomez, but Szoboszlai is so much more mobile than Jordan Henderson was at that point in his career. You could see that sometimes McAllister is swapping out and Szoboszlai is going a little deeper. If you have Gravenberch on one side, you've got one of McAllister or Szoboszlai on the other side. And he's invigorated again. He's able to interchange with these guys really, really well. And so this midfield unit, which I haven't even mentioned Curtis Jones in now, is essentially It's essentially now a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It is an enabling side to Andy Robertson, who's now that high left-sided fullback. It's an enabling piece to the likes of Luis Diaz, but Luis Diaz drops back and is very integral to just any counter-attacking movement. The Liverpool midfield know they can look to Diaz or Salah at any one point and go, we can counter-attack with those guys or the other. By the way, it's worth mentioning, Gravenberch came on late in this game. Havenberg? He was class against LASK. I thought, and that comment obviously reflects that very literally. The whole midfield now seemed to be a sum of its parts. Now, the problem is when you play sides like West Ham, they try and break that down. And so what it means is that a player, actually like Dominic Szoboszlai, who has some really classy touches, who genuinely looks like, sometimes I look at him and I'm like, oh, you are a Real Madrid player. You are silky, you are intelligent, you are arrogant, you have wet hair all the time. I didn't know you swim around here. I tried. It was a good joke, I thought. Sometimes his touches go a little bit awry. Sometimes they intercept his touches because his touches are quite intricate. He's trying a difficult pass. I don't want to criticize him for that. I don't think it's worth criticizing him for that. But once those begin to come off a little bit more, in a game where you're playing against someone like West Ham, should we say, that's fine. In the big games, you need Szoboszlai's passes to come off. Because McAllister at the moment is playing that 6 or the more defensive role much more confidently, as is Curtis Jones playing a much more confident defensive role. I love that as a midfield, however many, right? And when Endo comes on, I know he's trying to play more of a 6. I don't think Liverpool have quite nailed that defensive position yet, but what we're looking at here is that's a completely different midfield to what you would have seen in previous years for Liverpool, right? You wouldn't have seen Curtis Jones being so prominent. You would have seen a very prominent 6. There's not necessarily a very prominent 6 there right now. It's lots of different people interchanging in pods or in units or in whatever you want to call it. I've seen lots of comments about that below. I want to do another video about the Liverpool midfield transition. But what all these guys now are doing is playing these interchangeable pieces which move around. And within that, what I love about that is you get Gravenberch, you get Szoboszlai, you get McAllister, you get Curtis Jones, you could bring a Bajcetic on. I thought in the last game, obviously they played him at right back. That's kind of a weird position to bring him back in. I think if you're bringing someone back from an injury, maybe it's kind of good to put him in a position where you know there's a little less pressure on them if they just stay back. Maybe it's good to lower him back into the game and just sort of go, hey, just get yourself out there, get some minutes in your legs. You're not playing in midfield tonight. There's a little bit less pressure on you. You've got some experienced people alongside you. Go out there and just, see what you do in that position. Didn't have the best game, but in the end, when he was getting on a little bit, when he was being that right back, I loved what he was doing. And I think that's testament to what Klopp is trying to build in this midfield. An interchangeable, intelligent, ball-carrying midfield. It's why he's stuck with Curtis Jones for such a long time. Someone who for such a long time we maligned the fact that he wasn't Wijnaldum. We maligned the fact that he wasn't Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, any of these guys. Do you know what he is? He's a really good ball carrier. He's someone who is now interchanging a lot more. He's making a lot more intelligent decisions, arguably as intelligent as the 2 newest big signings in Liverpool's midfield. Obviously, who started today. There's 4 new Liverpool mid-signings in the midfield, but you get my point. A, he's a scouser. B, he is someone who's been at this club for ages. He has a great relationship with all the other players around him. He's been endorsed by some of the biggest names. Henderson, Van Dijk, all of the big boys, Thiago, everyone I've spoken to, and other people have spoken to, have always had this glowing endorsement of Curtis Jones because they know, they can see what he's capable of. And that is coming through now in this midfield, right? Let's not judge Liverpool by this game. I don't really think it's worth it. It's a West Ham game that really, it's West Ham, do you know what I mean? But West Ham are a difficult bump in the road right now. They were, I think, 3 points off Liverpool when we started this game. Liverpool go 1-0 up, 6 points behind. Now they are 6 points behind Liverpool. Antonio, mind that gap. But he was talking about finishing above Liverpool. Liverpool need to differentiate themselves from that chasing pack at the top of the league this season. Not the West Hams, the team probably immediately behind that, right? And at the moment, they sit there come the end of the weekend, where they are 2 points off City. I think they're maybe just 1 point ahead of the team immediately behind them. I've not looked at the league table after the game, mainly because I think there's another couple of games to go. But the point is, if you look at this Liverpool side right now, there is an interchangeable confidence. Joe Gomez was not decidedly confident right back at the start of the season. Joel Matip was possibly one to away or going to leave in the summer, and Virgil van Dijk was injured for a couple of games, and Liverpool made it through each of those games. That is now a number of wins on the bounce. That is something like 16 or 17 games unlost in the Premier League, or where Liverpool haven't been beaten. And arguably, I think Alisson made some world-class saves earlier, which is, again, he kind of deserves this. This is why I kind of wanted to pick out almost every individual. Like I could have done, very often I like Google these pictures. You can easily get these pictures up. I could have done just a profile of each of these guys. I could have just gone through and gone, Alisson, fantastic saves early on, world-class saves, positioning incredible. You can't really say his positioning should have been better for the Bowen goal. I think Van Dijk's probably the player who could have had better positioning there. But the point is, like, Alisson has been amazing because this back line at the moment is struggling to keep up sometimes when there is space found in between them. West Ham knew they could hang balls up. They knew that Ward-Prowse, they knew that Antonio, they knew that Bowen would get into these positions and be able to challenge those Liverpool centre-backs, which is probably what makes Mikel Antonio so confident, right? But alongside that, we know that there is now much more cover, or at least much more that you can't just walk through the midfield, is what I'm saying. So now it forces players to put pressure on the Liverpool centre-backs rather than on the Liverpool midfield that was maybe ageing and not so good last season. It's obviously a change to see, and I think it's weird to watch. Sometimes I'm watching this Liverpool side and I'm like, I don't quite realise how good they are, if that makes sense. You realise Dominic Szoboszlai is world class. I'm not quite sure he's like every game hitting exactly that world-class level. He's having good games, but I feel like we're about to see I think, this Liverpool side's going to unload on someone. I feel like that's going to be great. Mo Salah, Darwin Nunez, I'm just naming players now. But the point is, I do think there are still vulnerabilities in this team they need to address. Virgil van Dijk, Joel Matip, Andrew Gomez basically play as a centre-back three, but it's really a two, but these two kind of rotate over here, and Van Dijk's really the only centre-back that sort of stays back there. It relies a lot more on Alisson sometimes to be confident to push out. He had that header early on that kind of went for a corner. There's a bit of that sweeper-keeper element. This Liverpool side is maintaining and changing quite a lot, and it's quite strange to watch. Sometimes you go, God, you almost want players that have defined roles sometimes, or have that oh, we have a six, that guy's going to tackle him. Oh, we have this guy, the ball's going to go to him, the ball's going to go up there. The almost chameleon-like nature, the nature of Liverpool at the moment to move things around is working. I think there'll be managers that are going to challenge that. And it's not going to be West Ham to intricately challenge Liverpool's formation. It is going to be teams like City. It is going to be teams who, in Europe, do detailed tactical analysis for weeks ahead and try to, specifically sit on specific players. I think what helps Liverpool through those games is the confidence that they currently have. What helps Liverpool through those games is the fact that they now believe in this system again. They now believe in the training again. They're reinvigorated within this Premier League season, and it's worth us acknowledging. As fans, I think a lot of people thought Klopp was kind of done out there. I'm not saying that all these games have been the most difficult world-class games. Playing third place in the Austrian division, with respect to the Austrian division, isn't exactly, playing Champions League football. Playing West Ham, playing Wolves, playing all these sides who are struggling but transitional. I think there is probably more to come from this Liverpool team, but you can only play what's put in front of you. And I think, the same could be said for City, who are streaking out at the top of the top of the league at the moment this season. The Liverpool League, as I want to call it. The point is, if you win, you get the momentum, you get the confidence. I think a lot of people at the moment think, we could go in there and beat Liverpool. They've not really had a test this season. I kind of agree with that. But I also think momentum and the order you play the games in is so important. I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say about this. I'd love to know your thoughts on the game overall, who you think played well, who you think was kind of taken advantage of. I'll admit, I actually thought there's a lot of people who are saying Szoboszlai was classy today. I actually thought Szoboszlai had a couple of loose touches early on that put Liverpool in trouble, shall I say? And that, I get it, he's paid to play those risky passes. Sometimes I just think you could see McAllister stuck his arms out at one point, it was like, the pass was on there. There are a couple of times where it was incepted, which I know every Liverpool player has had, because there are people who are working on incepting in the passing lanes, and that's kind of where the managers want their players to be. But you get my point, he's world class. Use that world class vision. Sometimes there is an easy pass on and he goes for what we call back in the Gerrard days, the Hollywood ball. I'm not saying therefore don't play that. I'm just saying I think sometimes this Liverpool team are ticking, and you can see that because there is interchangeability within the midfield, they don't get caught out of position. But sometimes you go, I wish that was McAllister instead of Szoboszlai. I wish that was Szoboszlai instead of McAllister. What I do love is they are hunting in packs again. What I do love is, you're seeing combinations of McAllister and Diaz, or Szoboszlai and Diaz, or Curtis Jones and Diaz, or Mo Salah and Szoboszlai, or whoever it is on that right or left side, harrying players into, winning the ball back. Player goes down, he sort of goes, give me a free kick. Sometimes the ref blows, sometimes he doesn't. It's those combinations. Andy Robertson is great at winning the ball back, and Joe Gomez is getting much better. For me, I know it sounds weird, but Joe Gomez, man of the match. Have barely even scratched the surface with Darwin Núñez yet. Núñez has an elite level finishing. I think I get why Klopp kind of say they kept his powder dry on him last season. He's enjoying being that starting forward. When Cody Gakpo comes on, it's so different, but it's so brilliant. Again, another brilliant ball carrier coming out from the midfield, coming in from the left, all these places. But Diaz is just this direct. But now, and one thing that went overlooked last season, he's a combination option. People don't understand how well Darwin Núñez combines with Mo Salah, with Luis Diaz. He's looking for that ball all the time to help the people around him. People go, he's just a striker. How smart could he be? They reduce him down to nothing because he's a young South American kid and people don't necessarily know what Klopp and everyone else is asking of him. So I'll finish on that tone. I'll finish on that little piece. Joe Gomez, man of the match. I'm just saying, Joe, you're still my hero. I doubted you last season and I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. Really appreciate you guys' time. I will chat to you in a while. Much love. Bye.